This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and also I am an interviewer for SWE Fury, and today I have former SWE Fury television champion Niles Plonk joining me from, I believe, his winery. How are you
That's
doing?
right. I'm doing well, Hannibal. Thank you for asking. Thanks for having me on. Enjoying a little Plonk rosé.
Yeah, I
this
wish
evening,
I
then.
had some of that right now.
I think a lot of people do with the weather that most of this area and the SWE area has been experiencing. So wine is always a good thing.
Lucky for me, I'm in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, where it's about 80 degrees right now. So I'm glad I didn't stick around in Dallas. But yeah, I understand it's pretty bad, but you're in Missouri, aren't you?
I'm in Missouri right now. I'd rather be in Nappa for my hometown, but right now I'm in Missouri, and it's looking at my temperature gauge here. We are warmer today for sure. 19 degrees. So not bad. You can chill a bottle of wine pretty quick outside.
For sure. The only states, from my understanding, that haven't been hit are Arizona, Florida, and California, as you mentioned, the wine country out there. Right. But as far as the next SWE Fury event coming up in Carthage next Saturday, February the 27th, which is going to be a huge event. They're expecting around 1,300 fans in attendance, which will be actually the highest attended wrestling event of the year for any company. So it's a huge event. Absolutely. This will be your return to SWE Fury since that title situation with Rodney Mack. Do you know who you're facing on the 27th yet?
I haven't got confirmation yet. But I'll be there with it's this absence from the last SWE Fury television tapings, with kind of me exploring the inner workings of myself and kind of recovering a little bit mentally on how I need to address myself going into the next SWE section of my career. And so you'll see a little bit different Plonk at this next one for sure, regardless of whether it's in singles or tag. I will be there to bring a little class, sophistication, in a completely different way, for sure.
That match that you had with Rodney Mack hasn't actually aired on the SWE Fury television show yet, but it did take place. I haven't seen it because I was conducting interviews in the back all night that night. I didn't get a chance to watch the monitor or anything. What happened there, other than Rodney Mack being in the second coming of his career right now?
I will say I have mad props for Rodney Mack. Rodney Mack was the better man that evening. He brought the fight to Niles Plonk, but also brought the fight back to him. And it's not over between him and I. Again, something I needed to refocus. He's definitely the toughest opponent I've stepped into the ring with in SWE. And I'm hoping to think that he would think the same of me. It ended up bad deal. I got a little bit of blood, kind of interfered with my normal game plans. Now I'm used to squishing grapes for color, not my own forehead. So threw me off a little bit, but I'll be back. Rodney Mack, you just keep that belt warm for me. I would appreciate that. It's not over. But again, mad props to Rodney Mack. Definitely second coming of his career. Super talented guy, strong as an ox, tough as nails. And I look forward to stepping back in there with you. A little bit different game plan from Niles Plonk this time, though.
Yes, and Rodney Mack did successfully defend that title the other weekend in Irving, Texas. So he's definitely the one to beat for that title. But for those that don't know your history in SWE Fury, I've only been following it since about November, seen a couple of your matches. Could you tell us a bit about how you came on board with the company and obviously some of your accomplishments, including that big TV title win?
Oh, sure. I mean, I was with SWE from the beginning, the very first Canton show that they did, and I had just recently broken into kind of the Texas area. I've been mostly based out of the Midwest area. That's where I did most of my wrestling. I was trained by 14-time Central States champion Sonny. He broke me in. Then later on, he sent me down to Harley Races School, WLW in Eldon, where both Harley and their head trainer Derek Stone took over and basically taught me the new era of wrestling, because I was taught in super old school. Sonny was an old time wrestler, 1940s and 50s. So that was what I needed to up my next approach. And just over the years, had been wrestling in the area, all around the United States, overseas, and then when SWE started, I had just come off of a venture with a company in Kansas City, where really Niles Plonk was born, and was wrestling around, just breaking into Texas with a couple other of the local companies. And that's when the booker, James Beard, asked me if I would be interested in competing in SW Fury, which of course, that's the best thing that was going. I could tell from before they even ran, that this was going to be a big thing for Texas and for wrestling in general. Not just Texas, just for wrestling in general. So I was all aboard for that.
And who did you defeat to win the SWE Fury TV title? And were you the first champion ever?
Nope. I actually defeated Barrett Brown, who is also a very talented competitor, but not as good as Niles Plonk that night. I defeated him with my grapevine, which is a variation of a Indian Deathlock, and took home that belt and defended it successfully until December. So, but Barrett Brown, great competitor, did great honors, brought that TV title up to where it needed to be. Then Niles Plonk took it to the next level.
And you mentioned you wrestled overseas. Where exactly did you wrestle overseas?
I've wrestled in Amsterdam, Belgium. I wrestled in Moscow. I've wrestled in St. Petersburg, Russia. So just a few of those little places there. I haven't made it to Japan yet. That's on the goal. Also, some other European countries love to do that stuff. So, and then I'd like to get down south, somewhere towards Mexico, Puerto Rico, whatnot. Those are all goals. I don't want to say this year and jinx it because of COVID. I mean, that was kind of the goal last year, was to get out a little bit more, but we had, as you know, we all had to kind of restrain ourselves from that travel, or they restrained us. So hopefully we'll start seeing a little bit more of that, and I can venture out to a couple more places. But SWE is what I consider to be my home promotion. They're the ones you'll see me at every time they do one, because they have the potential to be so big, and they're already growing so big. They're just taking over every station. They're getting ratings. I made the comment to a good friend of mine this last week that at the last event I was at in December, well, as soon as you walk out of the curtain, the fans already know who you are, which is something even with other companies that run in regular places, you still have to kind of reintroduce yourself every time. The TV is working. SWE Fury is getting recognition. People will understand this. Other places that I work outside of SWE Fury, they recognize me from SWE Fury. So their program is reaching. It is growing faster than most people, I think, really understand right now.
Yeah, I was actually informed last week that if you add up all the syndication viewers they have on TV every week, because they're syndicated in over 25 million homes, it actually gets more television viewership than Impact. But Impact is just on one channel, but add it all up, that's a lot of viewers. But you mentioned Amsterdam. Did you get the chance to go out at all while you were over there? Because that's a notorious party town.
It is. Now, I'm a classy person, so I stuck to some of the more historic aspects of it. I did get to see some of the nightlife down there just from a distance. Actually, kind of sad. A lot of it is, but I did get to view like I'm a wine connoisseur, but I'm an equal opportunity alcohol consumer. The Heineken Brewery was a very interesting and entertaining tour. Um, Also visited a lot of the little microbreweries in the Belgian area, which I just absolutely fell in love with their craft there as well. I mean, they're very much like a fine wine, how they treat some of the brews that they do, some of those lambics and sours and brown ales that they do in Belgium. So definitely a fan. It's on my to-do list to go back. I have the connections. I just need to hopefully get as soon as everything opens up, get back over there for sure. I need to restock my wine cellar with some Belgian beers.
Now, as a kickboxer, I know that kickboxing is really popular over there. I did not know they had their own wrestling over there. What is the wrestling scene over there?
And so we're talking. This was probably 8 or 9 years ago. So I mean, it's very much like most of. I would equate it very close to like the Midwest scene. There's not really any big companies like an SW Fury. There's a lot of littler companies that run, but they'll draw consistent crowds, 100, 200, 300 in smaller, arenas, gymnasiums, things like that. So one thing they are set up a little bit different is they're a little bit more focused on event centers over there, especially in that part of the world. So they have literally like a small, medium, and large event center in almost any town that's perfect for large, medium, and large scale wrestling. So it's not hard to find the venues or stuff. It's harder to find the promotions. And I worked of the 4 different times I worked overseas, I worked for 4 different promotions each time. So it was they kind of worked together in a lot of those aspects too. Again, that was 8 years ago. Things change, but I would assume it's pretty close to the same now. Probably even more so now that they've introduced more mainstream wrestling to European countries and whatnot.
Jack Jerry wants to know who would be your dream opponent in professional wrestling.
Well, I will say my dream opponent is if it's not restricted to living or dead, Kurt Hennig. Kurt Hennig would be. He's a person that I watch constantly, influenced. Nobody moved quite like Kurt Hennig. Just an athlete that just was fluid, and everything he did made so much sense. Current living, always been a big fan of Chris Jericho. It's kind of a bucket list. Got a few more years, I think, to fulfill that somewhere. But I'd love to have a chance to work with him just for the nostalgic part for me, growing up watching him as a kid in WCW, then to WWE. And then watching his career, truly a guy, he's like a Ric Flair. He's the Ric Flair of our generation. He's been through several different eras and still doing strong and still main eventing. So for sure.
When you were training at Harley's, I know that Joe Hennig, as well as Amy Hennig, who I met before down there, they were both training there. Did you become friends with either of his kids, or were they there different times than you?
No, they were there, both Joe and Amy. I would say that I was more friends with Joe, although I liked Amy too. We were just more professional acquaintances. Joe was a good guy. He was in there training with Derek and I several times. I mean, I haven't kept up that friendship. I mean, we went our separate ways. Obviously, he went up to the WWE, and a few times when I've been backstage with the WWE, he'll come by and he'll still call me by my old wrestling name, which is great. Still recognizes me. So Joe's a good dude. Great dude, actually. I would call him a friend. So.
Yeah, I thought Amy was really cool. She had a lot of potential, but I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was, I think she started a family or something.
I think that was the story. But yeah, she had a lot of potential too. And she looked like Kurt more than Joe. I mean, it was she moved like him too, which was kind of cool. Now that Joe's very talented too. But Amy had more of her dad's characteristics and mannerisms, which was really fun to watch her do stuff.
She also did the gargling of the Jack Daniels shots that her dad would do, which I had the opportunity to do with her.
That's awesome.
Fun. You mentioned you had some WWE opportunities. Do you want to talk to us about what your connection with WWE has been so far?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've been extra talent, I don't know, 40 times in the past 20 years. So, I mean, that can be anything from, as you know, security guard to eating catering and watching the show to going out and doing a match. And I've had several dark matches throughout the years. I've had most recently televised was I did a 205 live match 2 years ago with Mike Seidel, which is Matt Seidel's brother. He was my tag partner against the Lucha House Party. So that was a lot of fun. 3-minute match, great though. It was fun to finally get the TV spot on there after all those years. But still, obviously they're not touring or anything like that, but still probably do stuff with them when they go out, if they go out and do stuff again, which I'm sure they will. So always keep that door open for sure.
Was there ever any talk of bringing you down to Orlando for a performance center tryout?
There was a couple different times when I went down to NXT as an extra. It just, as wrestling is, there you got to wait for the opportunity to sometimes just show up, and things change so fast there that we were supposed to have kind of a little tryout session one time, and things got scrapped and changed and moved, and so I mean, sometimes it's just the right time, right place, and that wasn't it. So I mean, I'm always hopeful to get down there and show them what I can do. But, in the meantime, there's plenty of other places to work. They're not the only place to work, although they're would be a wonderful place to work for someone that's been wrestling for 20 years. Absolutely.
Yeah, you want that payday no matter what you think of the current product.
Sure. Yeah.
The money.
The money, the recognition that you would get from it too. Even just 3 years in it, you elevate the people who see you. I mean, so yeah, I mean it's a definite yes. Anybody should want to strive to be the top of the game at some point. I mean, I understand people's priorities change as they get older in the business and things change and whatnot. And that's kind of where I'm at, where it's not a break-in for me, or I'm not gonna quit if I don't get it, because I obviously haven't so far. But it's definitely something I'd still hold as a very high honor to do. So definitely on the goals still.
Mike D says he loves Russian women. I do too. You wrestled over in Russia. I recently interviewed a girl named Ksenia, actually. She's a Russian YouTuber, very beautiful lady. And she informed me all about the wrestling scene over there. How did you become involved in it? It doesn't seem like Americans in that wrestling scene.
They're not, and it was kind of scary. So we were part of a group that went into St. Petersburg during their bicentennial. So our wrestling took place outside at some little shop area that they had. It was interesting. I mean, when you get down to it, despite language barriers and whatnot, it's still wrestling. So the crowd still interacts. Sometimes you're not understanding what they're saying, but you understand what they're saying, how they're saying it. So you understand what it is, whether it's cussing you out or cheering you, you understand it. I was hooked up with that through the people that I work for in Belgium and whatnot. They helped kind of tie that. They had connections overseas there too. And a lot of them came over and did that too. So it was just kind of neat. And they all just kind of networked with that. And we were there. So they're going to utilize us Americans while we're there. So that's what we did.
Jefferson E. White wants to know if you ever worked in England, because he thinks your last name, Plonk, would get a few Snickers over there.
I have not worked in England. I would love to. Absolutely. Plonk is definitely, or Plonk is definitely a very European term for a cheap, not necessarily a inferior wine. So bottle of Plonk is just a normal gathering of wine. You're not going to break your wallet on. That's what Plonk is. But Plonk is different.
Speaking of wine, Jeremy Thornton wants to know about the wine you're drinking right now.
I'm drinking the Plonk Rosé, which has a very handsome figure on it. It is a Vignoble grape, which is a Missouri-grown grape that is blended with blackberries. So it gives it that nice red hue. And it's a semi-sweet, very nice just to have a glass of, just to relax with. It's one of my favorites. Obviously, it's got my face on it, so.
Blimp and Dom Company wants to know, could we ever see a grape stomping match in SWE?
Well, I am the originator of the grape stomp match. I did one for a company, the NWL in Kansas City. I initiated it. It's very possible if the timing's right and if it so happens to have the right opponent, I would definitely bring the vat of grapes and gross skins back to dump your opponent in. That's how you win a grape stomping match. Then you got to stomp them in it. So very possible you could see that on SW in the future. Have to get with some of those Texas wineries and see what kind of grapes they have.
Darnell Sparrow Sr. wants to know, what would the current Niles Plonk tell a young upstart Niles Plonk advice that you didn't know when you first broke into the wrestling business?
Venture out of your comfort zone. Venture out of your hometown. Venture out of, and what I mean by hometown is your area that you wrestle in, your home promotion, your place that you trained at. Get out of there. Still keep them in your heart. Work for them when you can, but get your name out as many places as you can. Travel. Hit the road, get in the car, find someone else that's driving, hop in their car, help pay gas. Do that. Get out to as many places as you can. Get your name recognized, especially with social media now. It's all about where you're at and how you're at and how you're getting there. People see that and they say, wow, this guy's really getting around. When I started, we didn't have that. We had, this is the fun, you know this too. We had VHS tape camcorders to film the matches. Everyone's got the high def stuff now on their phone, and we had VHS tapes with the big old honking camcorder, and hardly ever took pictures of them. You can't even watch them now; they're so grainy and gross. We had folding maps that we looked at to find the town, and then we got to the gas station to ask where the venue was because we didn't have GPS. That's 1999. So like, social media has made everything so much better and easier. There's no reason why a younger Plonk wouldn't be told to go out and do as much stuff as he can, because it's so easy to advertise that now and show that you're doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of independent wrestlers out there that don't have the drive. I know many. Talked to one of them today. Walter Herwig wants to know if your action figure will be available in Carthage. So I assume you have an action figure.
Yeah, I got an action figure. I will have it there in Carthage for sure. I will have several there. So just get to that merch table as quick as you can, or send me a private message and I'll hold one for you for sure.
Andrew Anderson, a good buddy of both of ours, I guess, says you're a great talent. And you're also going to be coming to the Rumble in Havana, Cuba, as soon as COVID restrictions end. Hopefully they end at some point.
I hope so too, because I know Andrew's been, I feel sorry for him with as many times as he had to move this back because of COVID. I'm looking so forward to this Cuba trip because I'm also a connoisseur of fine rums. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to wrestling overseas right now because of the weather. I am certainly looking forward to palm trees and sand. So we're gonna have a good time, Andrew. I'm so, you know me. I'm there. When you say next week, we're there. That's what it is.
Apparently, I'm going to be covering that one too. So hopefully he does it in the winter months.
Yes.
Someone's asking, who has been your favorite opponent so far?
Ooh, I have so many, honestly. Probably the guy that I have the best chemistry with throughout the years has been Michael Berry, Flex Zerba. He wrestles in the Midwest. We got to where, we worked each other 4 or 5 nights a week sometimes. So we just got that, where it's, what are we doing tonight type thing. Recently, Dak Draper, he's in ROH now. Him and I have always had great matches. Moonshine Mantel, another good guy that brings a lot out of me. So really enjoy working with those guys and he's an SWE too. So really like working with Magnificent Malico. Really helps our we blend really well with creativity in terms of character wise. So we come up with some fun stuff. Really, I could list people all day, but those are some of the top ones for me for sure.
I don't know if this is a joke or not, but someone's asking if you've ever been involved in grape smuggling.
Not that I'm aware of. I've smuggled wine into places. Does that count? That's kind of grape snuggle. You might smuggle a bottle of wine into a movie theater once in a while, but that's about it.
Drew Anderson's confirming for us that yes, Hannibal TV will be there.
Yes.
Jack Jerry wants to know if we would ever wrestle in Canada. Of course, we operate North Wrestling up here in Canada, so the fans always are interested in hearing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think before COVID, I was in talks with somebody, and I don't know if it was the promoter or just someone working about going up and doing some sort of tour for a week or two there. Because I guess they wrestle a lot in Canada, or some of the places wrestle several nights a week. I don't know what that entailed, but obviously that got shut down. So, but yeah, I'd love to. I've been to Canada once as a kid, but not once to wrestle. So I would love to go do that for sure. And I like, I like the countryside and everything up there too. Even though it's cold, I love that whole atmosphere.
Yeah, you want to come between June and August.
Okay, so promoters, June and August. If you want to book Niles Plonk, I'm there for sure.
Right now, we're on absolute full lockdown up there. That's why I'm staying here in the U.S. because I'm living in a prison. So you don't want to be there at all right now. And actually, Americans are banned from Canada right now. There's a hater on here, but since you're a heel, I'm sure you're not going to mind me reading this. Drinking wine with special blends doesn't mean you ate it drunk, dude. Winos are the worst type of piss heads out there. Goonie drinkers. Look at him guzzling that piss. Well, it doesn't look like piss to me.
Well, some people just aren't cultured, Hannibal. That's obviously, I haven't used the word piss yet. So I consider myself a classy guy. I'm sorry, buddy. Go buy yourself a bottle of cheap Plonk, and maybe you'll fall in love with it. You might get a girlfriend then too. So,
yeah, I've actually had some good wine actually since being on this trip in the U.S. There's some good stuff out there. Steve says SWE is way better than Raw and AEW Dynamite combined. Well, that's not saying much in my opinion because I can't even watch 5 minutes of either of those shows. But,
and I say, I appreciate that because I'm part of the SWE, and I'm not part of the other ones. But I'm, at the same time, wrestling's, there's different flavors of wrestling. So, I wouldn't call any product 100% great or bad for any one person. It's just what you like and what you gravitate to. I grew up watching WWF, then it was WWE. I didn't know about AWA or NWA until I started wrestling because I lived out in the country. I had a satellite that we got WWF, and then when I was older, I knew about WCW. And so, there was things I liked about WCW, and there's things I liked about WWF as a fan before I even started wrestling. So, different things for different people. But we appreciate your support. They all do. All the wrestlers appreciate your support as a fan for whatever you like.
I think WWE isn't really every team, but I like definitely going back to the wrestling product.
Sure.
and no scripted promos and more of a hard hitting style than the Spot Fest. That's more my taste, but I agree. We have fans on this channel that love AEW. So if that's your taste, for instance, go for it. And if you're making the money in there as a wrestler, which I do have some friends in that company, good for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, any of us wrestlers would probably, take the opportunity. If they gave us an opportunity to go wrestle for them, we're going to go wrestle for them because they're doing good things. They're doing big things too. I mean, just like SWE's doing big things, they're doing big things too. And of course, WWE's always doing big. They're constantly doing big things. So, we're all looking for that opportunity. We're all looking to do bigger things because, we should be. We should all be wanting to get better. So that's what we're doing.
Kimberly, we got a female fan on here. Did you wrestle in Pittsburgh, Kansas, at the Kansas Crossings Casino?
Several times. I wrestled there for a company called World Class, probably 2.5 years ago. And then for XWE, which is a group that runs out of Salina, Kansas. They ran some shows there in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And then way back in the day, I worked for companies in Pittsburgh, Kansas. We were at the Armory, though, in Pittsburgh, not at the Kansas Crossing Casino. Casino's cool. I mean, it's always cool to wrestle in a casino because it's just good food, fun times afterwards. It's a hotel right there. So you don't have to worry about driving anywhere. It's great. But, yeah, been there several times. Great place.
Mark wants me to ask you about Viral Pro.
Viral Pro was something we did when the pandemic started. I set up a studio at my winery, and we started filming a TV show. It's available on YouTube now. You can watch what we did. We did a whole season. We just had guys that came in. We were socially distanced. We did all the protocols that were directed to do, but we just had a closed set TV tapings. And we had some fun storylines. We did some cinematic matches on there. I had a feud with Miranda Gordy, which was really fun. She beat me up because she's tough. I'll put her over on that for sure. Only person to break my jaw, so we'll give her points for that. Yeah. She's tough. Just don't backtalk her. That's
forearm.
What's that?
Did she hit you with a forearm in the jaw?
She chopped my jaw. She gave me a chop, and it hit my jaw, and it popped it. It was pretty good, but it's wrestling, so you just keep going, and she's an amazing talent. She's going to do some big things, but had a lot of fun with that. And that's, again, look up Viral Pro on YouTube. You can watch the whole first season on there. Great stuff.
Now, as far as the girls wrestling, of course, Christy Janes recently defeated Miranda Gordy to become the SWE Women's Champion, which is, by the way, it's on the Hannibal TV and the SWE Fury YouTube channel on this week. SWE Fury, if anyone wants to look that up. But what do you think about the SWE Fury women's division? Amazing right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're coming in. So many great stars.
So much talent coming in. I mean, you got like Miranda. You've got Christy Janes, who's got their title. You got Malaya Hosaka, who's coming in. I mean, Jazz is there kind of overseeing all that and being part of that. I mean, you got so much talent just ready in there. I mean, that's SWE Fury has the hot spot of women's wrestling in terms of throwing them in with the rest of the wrestling world. You won't see any better competitions from women, especially since SWE is so set on having competition with wrestling. They're bringing it back to wrestling. So if you want to see actual girls going at it as wrestlers and competitive versus more storyline driven stuff, SWE is where you're going to see it. And it's impressive what these girls can do. I don't want to fight half of them. I don't want to fight most of them.
King Dale Clark wants to know, in your opinion, who's the toughest wrestler in the history of the business?
Oh, Ming. I mean, I think his reputation, he's the only guy that Harley was not wanting to mess with. And in retrospect, Ming said Harley was the only person that he didn't want to mess with either. So they had like the mutual standoff. But I think just his reputation as being just a tough person, I want him on my team. That's for sure. I wouldn't want to face him.
Yeah, and when you're around Ming, you can see that it's like his forehead is thicker than most people's forehead. His hand really thick, so he'd be a tough guy to knock out for sure, just for the sheer bone structure that he has. I know Harley used him on a bunch of World League Wrestling events. Did you ever meet him on any of those shows?
Oh yeah, I met him there, and then I also met him. He came into a couple of the Metro Pro shows in Kansas City before, and some of the NWL shows in Kansas City. And then I met him at a couple other places. Some places, super super nice guy, very humble. That's the one thing for a guy that has a reputation of being a complete badass. Guy's just as humble as can be, and just always listens, remembers your name, talks to you like he's just a very genuine person.
Do you have any stories about Harley Race training with him? Because the fans always love to hear that. And he's definitely one of the toughest of all time. Of course, he was probably a decade or two beyond his prime by the time you trained with him.
Oh yeah, I mean, and when I say my training, when I went down to Harley's, his trainer was Derek Stone, who was there, and Harley would set sometimes, and sometimes he'd get in there and he'd throw the punches. So the thing was is that, and Sonny, this is the same way with Sonny too. It must have been like the old vet thing. We'd be in there practicing doing punches or something, and he would say, no, you're doing it wrong on the outside. And then some of the guys that had been there before would get this look of like, oh no. And they would try and up their game, but it didn't matter because then they would get into the ring and actually hit you the way they wanted it to, and it would just rock you to the end. You're like, yeah, that's why this guy has that reputation, because he can certainly knock bricks out of a wall with his fingertip if he needed to. So stuff like that was always fun. Of course, he didn't move well or whatnot, but or I guess he moved okay whenever we were doing that stuff. But my experience with him was mostly just listening to stories. The fun stuff was like when he had Terry Funk and those in, and I got to drive Terry Funk around all the time, and just those two bantering at each other and sitting at a steakhouse one night in St. Joe, drinking beers with Terry Funk and Harley Race and listening to them go back and forth was probably one of my favorite experiences as a wrestler. From even back then, the thing was, I was so young back then, I didn't realize how cool that was until I got older. I'm like, that was pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, Terry's definitely one of the all-time greats for sure. Did he give you any advice or anything like that when you guys were driving together?
Oh yeah, I mean he was my favorite person to pick up from the airport, because I lived in Kansas City, so I would drive to Eldon. So I picked up most of the people he flew in: Vader, Hacksaw, all those guys, Butch Reed, and we would drive down to Eldon. So I'd get 3 hours in the car with them there, 3 hours back, and I learned from a very early on that they didn't really necessarily want to don't talk about wrestling unless they bring it up. Like, we'll talk about other stuff because they talk about wrestling all the time, but they would, just like all of us, we gravitate towards it. So they would bring it up, and then it was on their terms, and that was when you could get the best advice and whatnot from it. And Terry was great. I had some fun. Remind me, Hannibal, when we're off air. I'll tell you some funny stories, because there's some stories I probably shouldn't say on air with Terry, but it's great. It's great.
Now, Vader, I got to spend a full day with him about a year before he died, and I'm really glad I had that opportunity because I felt like a real connection with him. Any thoughts on Vader from driving him around when he would wrestle for Harley?
Oh yeah, Vader was a character too.
Yeah.
I liked him. I liked him a lot, but he was definitely, like, he was kind of hard to read sometimes. And he's a guy that would get so down on himself, but then he could turn that in and just go right into mode when he needed to. It was pretty neat to watch him be able to switch his character, so to speak, on and off when he needed to. And he, at that point, when Harley bring him in, he didn't want to do a lot because his knees were all hurting, and I think he had just done his last run with or the last time they WWE brought him in for some stuff. But Harley still made him get into the ring and made him put on his mask, and they would go back and forth. He's like, I don't want to put my mask on. Harley's like, put your mask on, Leon. That it was just funny. So yeah, Vader was good. Was a good guy to travel with. Lots of fun stuff with that too.
Yeah, I got some of his childlike whining, and it's kind of endearing to listen to. But
yeah, it's like, what do you do? This guy's sitting here asking me if he's a has-been or something. I'm like, I don't know how to answer you. You could kill me with the snap of your fingertip, buddy. I'm just gonna keep driving the car.
There's a fan that wants to know. Sorry, that's not the question. Well, sure, I'll ask you this. I clicked on the wrong one. Do you think the Draws footage will ever be released of D'Lo Brown breaking Draws' neck?
No, and why would you want to watch it?
Because
I mean, come on. Why? Come on, buddy. Do better.
Another fan wants to know what heel character in wrestling influenced you the most, or would you compare yourself to the most?
Influence. So again, I like Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. Obviously, Ric Flair, probably one of the better heels of all time. Far as my character work goes, I like to kind of model a little bit after, and I'm not near as good a technician or even as good of a character as Regal, but Regal, definitely there's some Regal with Niles Plonk, Niles Plonk. The wine's kicking in. All kinds of different, basically any type of gimmick where there was someone's a little bit more uppity up. That's kind of where I stole that from. But a lot of that was from Regal, Mr. Perfect, even some Bobby Heenan in there too. So all those things kind of influenced it a little bit. And then movie show, I take from other characters too. Honestly, because I own a winery and I'm behind the bar a lot, or I used to be a lot. Now I have other people doing that, but I would legit have people come into the winery that gave me the influence for Niles Plonk that are uppity up and snobby. And you just grit your teeth and pour the wine and treat them like you do any other customers. But there's certain mannerisms that they expressed when they're doing wine tastings and stuff that I picked up to add to that. So basically the stuff that annoyed me is the stuff I applied to Niles Plonk.
You're getting some good heat from the fans. I'm not going to read that one out loud, but that's a sign of a decent heel. Dave, Pennsylvania, wants to know anyone you're looking forward to taking on in SWE. Obviously, you want the rematch with Rodney Mack, but anyone else?
Oh yeah, I mean, like the roster SWE is top anyway. So Tim Storm, I've locked horns with him once. I'd like to do that again. Adam Asher, APOC, we have a history. Love to do some more stuff with that. Jack Stain, former NWA champ as well. Do some stuff with him. I'd love to do more stuff with Malico, Moonshine. I mean, literally anybody on that roster. But I'd say like my main focus now is if I'm not going for that TV title, I'm going to be going for some sort of gold. But Roddy Mack is definitely a guy I want to step back in there with and do some more stuff with for sure.
I've certainly heard rumblings that there might be a Texas title in the works, which could be interesting if they introduce another title.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm always going to be up in front trying to compete for whatever title they have available. So I don't have one now. I feel a little bit naked without it. So we'll find something to put that back around my waist.
Rec 46 wants to know your thoughts on Rick Rude. And he mentions that Rick Rude was also legitimately tough.
Yeah, Rick Rude also, I mean, character-wise, guy had the character down great. Had $1 million look, was athletic, could do the things really well. Tragic story, as a lot of those guys of that era turned out to be, but definitely, one of the best, if not one of the greatest. That's overlooked a lot sometimes.
Jack wants to know your favorite place to wrestle.
Ooh, I'm a Midwestern boy. I was trained, obviously Harley, Sonny. So that's kind of a Memphis style. Midwest style is kind of a Memphis style. So I love wrestling Memphis, Tennessee. I love those fans there because they still stick hold to that, three-part structure match. They love the those simple things that you can do. Any match where I can grab a headlock and get just as much of a reaction as doing something off the top rope as I'm a fan of. So Memphis is definitely that area. Tennessee, Jackson, favorite place to work probably currently. Texas also great. Love Texans. They love the hard hitting stuff, and I'm kind of crazy. I like the hard hitting stuff too. That's the mesh of the two. You got the Memphis style, you got the hard hitting Texas style, and Midwest is kind of the mesh of everything. So I got the little mix of both. So I got the best of both worlds on that. Texas great. And of course, love working for the Midwest, Kansas City area. Kansas City fans are great to me, always have been. And they're more the old school Memphis style. They like that kind of stuff. So yeah, some of my three favorite places for sure.
Someone's asking if you've wrestled Retro Randy.
Oh yeah, I wrestled Retro Randy in world class at the Lava Cantina before SWE ran there. I believe he was teaming with MVP, and I had Matt Stryker as my tag partner. So we had a good little tag match. It was fun. But Retro Randy's good, talented guy. Also, he's great at doing promo videos and stuff for wrestlers. He put together my promo package that I have on YouTube. So any wrestlers, check that guy out. He's great at doing that stuff for you.
Where can people check out your promo package if they want to look it up?
It's on my Facebook page, on my Instagram page, my Twitter, which I'm rarely on Twitter, but I do have an account, and those are all at Craig Kiesman, which is my real name. I have a Niles Plonk pages, but they all tie together with the Craig Kiesman is kind of the main one because it's with my winery and the wrestling and then the other projects that I do are all in that, the acting and stuff like that. So it's all at Craig Kiesman. That's with a K, Craig with a K. And then promo package, I have a YouTube channel. You can check that out there. I think it's on the Viral Pro channel too. You can see that on there. So if not, I'll put it on there. So
maybe we could get it on the SWE channel too.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Steve wants to know, what was your first wrestling event you went to growing up?
I think I was 15 or 16. I went to a WWE house show. I think it was either a house show or it was a Raw at Kemper Arena in Kansas City. And then the next one I went to was a couple months after I started training to wrestle. I went to the pay-per-view in Kemper where actually Owen Hart passed away. So I was at that show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, so I've been to maybe, and then I think I went to one more house show after that before I started doing extra stuff. Then I was at all kinds of them, but I was backstage. So, I mean, there got to a point where I stopped pursuing it as a fan and pursuing it as a career, as a professional, where that kind of broke away. And that was kind of at that point. But yeah, my first show was a WWF show at Kemper Arena in Kansas City.
Well, I got to ask you about that night. Since you were there, did the fans in attendance know that Owen had passed away, or did they think this was just some type of a wrestling angle and not take it that seriously?
It was odd. We were sitting very, very top of the arena, so we're watching the scoreboard TV. They had they had the big Tron, and we had to do that to look at it. So we were looking at the screen that was closest to us to watch. They were doing like the little promo package for the match, and we were all focused. Me, my two brothers, my dad, and then my best friend, and we actually saw him fall, and we watched him fall, and we thought it was a dummy because it just looked like a rag doll. And so it was really eerie. And then they started coming out and working on it, and we're like, and they were still playing the package. They were trying to stall and do all that stuff. So like you knew something was up. There was a lot of fans that didn't know, and they were still hooting and hollering, but we were kind of like, oh, this isn't, something's wrong. Very eerie. And then we went home, and then that's when we found out, we had to get on the internet and with the dial up to find out that information. But yeah, that's when we found out when we got back. So they didn't let anybody know, they make an announcement or anything. And they continued the show, which, I mean, kudos to all the workers after that. That'd be hard to do. Hard to do.
Yeah, I really don't know if I could do that. I guess it would depend how close I was to the person that passed, but that's pretty hard to have someone
Rough.
ring. And I actually, his wife brought up a good point last year that was actually a crime scene when he passed away. So technically, they should have barricaded it off right away and had the police fully investigate the scene. But this is so many years later, it's easy to come up with what should have been done.
Yeah, and like any tragic incident, you don't know how to react sometimes. That's not something you could plan for. So it's like, how do you, what do you do? And lots of decisions being made that maybe weren't the best decisions, but they were the best ones they thought they could do at the time. So I mean, I don't hold a grudge one way or another, or think illy one way or the other. I just know, I look at it from a performer, from a brother and sister perspective, is that would be really hard to do as a performer, going out there as a wrestler to do that. But so I give them props too, because that would take a lot to get yourself out there to do it. And so those guys were, my heart goes out to them. I even think about that now. It's really rough to think about that.
Blimp and Dome Company wants to know, how much wine do you consume on an average week? And a few people have asked throughout this, how did you get into the wine business as well?
Well, wine consumption is, I mean, I'm a guy, I'll drink a drink a day easily, sometimes more than one. When the weather's bad, maybe a bottle. But no, I mean, like those who follow me on Instagram and Facebook know I keep a really good workout regimen. So alcohol is kind of negative towards, too much alcohol is negative towards your workout gains and stuff like that. So I try to limit what I take, and obviously I want to be clear-minded. I have kids, so I have to watch out for that too. What got me in the wine industry is I'm a sixth generation farmer on a family farm in Missouri, and went to college. I got my degree, and I wanted to come back and do something in agriculture, but I didn't want to do traditional row crop, cattle, hogs. My dad, my older brother, my nephew, they still all run the farm that the winery's on, but I want to do something different that's agricultural based. So I planted a vineyard and started running wine. I say run, wrestling terms, everything. Started running wine and doing that, and slowly built the business up to where we're primarily in every major grocery store and liquor store in Kansas City, St. Joe area. So I'm pretty proud of the progress that we've done. And I have a good team too. I have a partner that's great at the winery. She does much better at the books and stuff than I do. And, she's just as much important part of it as I am. So,
well, if you bring me a bottle, I will drink an entire bottle on air. And
okay, we can do that for sure.
I wanted to ask you about the WWE's wine. They came out with an Ultimate Warrior and an Undertaker wine recently. I haven't sampled it, but what are your thoughts on that venture that they've entered into?
Oh, I think it's great. Obviously, I think they really haven't ventured into cross marketing with the wine world. Wrestling hasn't. I mean, you've seen some wine stuff in the past and whatnot, and I think my character did more for that, but that was for my company. This is a much grander scale, so it's good for both industries. Good for the wine industry that I'm in, good for wrestling because it brings recognition to both I haven't had a chance to try them. From what I've heard from people, they're good. They're pricey. I think they're like $100 a bottle, which
Yeah.
is more. I mean, just to let you guys know, it's $15. You can.
Can they order online? If they want to order some online, do you have online sales?
Yep. WindyWine.com. That's WINDY wine.com. And you can order, we can ship to most states, or some states are still a bit wonky on their alcohol laws, post prohibition stuff still, but still. Um, yeah, you can order wines on there and we can get them shipped out to you.
There's a fan on here that really likes your logo. Who designed it? He wants to know.
So the logo, I assume he's talking about this one. My art for all my wine, the background stuff, these are all wine labels that we have, is done by McKinley Illustrations. He is a very talented artist out of Kansas City. He designs a lot of skateboard decks, punk rock albums. He does a lot of freelancing. Super talented guy. He's my go-to guy on almost any type of artwork that I do, logo stuff. But I mean, I've just been really happy with what he did. I have some other artwork he's working on now. We'll do some more fun stuff with it. So McKinley Illustration out of Kansas City. Hit him up if you need any artwork stuff done.
A few fans on here that may not have seen you in action yet. You are on actually last week's SW Fury TV show. You had a victory there. I think it was your last TV title defense. That's on the Hannibal TV and SW Fury's YouTube channel, but they want to know about your finisher.
Oh, the finisher is called the Uncorker, and it's a cravat driver. So I'll grab the head here, come back, and drive forward. So it's basically similar to like a DDT in terms of how it spikes someone's head, but there's a little uncorking that I'll do before I'll hook it. That's why it's pretty vicious. That's why I like it. And I can hit it on just about anybody, about any time. So that's one of it. That's my primary finishing move. I do a submission move, which is a modified Indian Deathlock. That's the Grapevine. I seldom use that one because I like to just drop people on their heads. It's more fun.
The fan, Mr. White here, is commenting that he meant the cock and balls logo with the wine bottle on your robe.
Oh, okay. So that one was, and it's funny because it's a bottle of wine with two glasses crossed, so it definitely has a little phallic look to it. It was designed by the company that I started doing Niles Plonk A for, and that was the NWL. They were a company that ran in Kansas City. Major Basin was their sponsor, their main person that started it, and they went in full gun. They're very similar to I view SWE as what NWL was and what NWL could have been. SWE was growing. They put a lot of talent. They had contracts and things. But they like invested in their talent. They bought us gear. They helped us develop characters and things like that, which was priceless for me. I got a career gimmick out of it. But yeah, they put that on there. I didn't have much insight on that one. I have a few other robes too I wear. That's just my the black robe. I keep it for nostalgic. Starting to fall apart, so I'm gonna have to retire it soon. But it's the look that I think has my look the best just because it's been me for several years now. So I'll have to adjust that at some point.
What do you think the downfall of the NWL was? Because they had a lot of money backing them. Did they just have too high expectations of how well it was going to do on a quicker basis? Or did they lose some backing? What happened there?
Like there's a lot of different stories and suggestions and stuff like that. And I don't want to venture too much into it because I'm very grateful for what they did with it. I know that when they initially started that, Major tried a lot of different things for wrestling, like healthcare, full-time contracts. He had a training facility. He had vans and stuff to transport everybody to the shows and events. I mean, he did things that most places wouldn't even consider of. And what was cool about that is a lot of those things did work, and they worked well. But a lot of them also didn't work out so well as we kind of would figure they wouldn't. And that's just the recovery of that, trying to recover the cost on that, just became a point to where, it was time for him to move on to other ventures. And he's a smart guy, so he's got all kinds of other investments and stuff going. So NWO kind of ran its course. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back into the scene at some point, because the guy is very smart and he learned a lot from the first. I call this the first run of the NWO. I have a feeling he'll probably be back at some point. But yeah, I mean, it was probably my favorite time, next to, say, SWE, of wrestling. Just the camaraderie we had, the wrestling constantly, the TV recognition, getting our names out there. That was really the cool part of it.
Nacho Man 64 wants to know if you had any inspiration from former WCW star Jerry Flynn.
Oh, honestly, no. So I'm what you would call a terrible wrestling fan when I was growing up, because I only knew WWE or WWF growing up because I lived out in the country. It wasn't until I was like in junior high that I got on a bus, and I'm a comic book nerd. So I had a friend that had all the Marvel comic trading cards, right? He had the book, and he would show off his cards, and I looked there, and he had one, and there were wrestling cards. I'm like, well, who's that? And he's like, oh, that's Sting. I'm like, who's Sting? I had no idea who he was. I'm like, 13 years old. And that baffles people. They're like, well, I grew up watching the NWA. I'm like, I didn't watch NWA till I started training, and that was the assignment that Sonny or Harley told us to watch this match. So I had no idea there was other worlds of wrestling outside of WWF. And so the same thing and then there got to the point when I started wrestling, that I stopped being a fan more and pursued being the profession. So I was still, obviously I'm still a fan. I love wrestling, but I stopped pursuing watching, like trying to catch all the names and angles and stuff. And I'd watch it more for, well, let's see how this guy's feet move. Let's see how this move is actually, let's see how they position themselves and stuff like that. So it became more scholarly, looking at what they were doing. And so, but I mean, I've watched some Jerry Lynn matches, very talented guy. I just never watched it enough to really, I mean, maybe I did pick up here and didn't realize it. Sometimes that happens in wrestling, but I mean, not knocking the guy, great, obviously has a reputation to speak for itself. So.
Now, Trevor Murdoch is also from Harley Race's wrestling school. He's now joined SWE, and he said on the Inside SWE podcast last night with James Beard and I that he's actually going to defend the NWA national title in SWE Fury. So just want to know your thoughts on Trevor coming in and that kind of cross-promotional idea that an NWA championship is going to be defended in SWE Fury.
I think it's great on both aspects. Trevor's friend. Trevor's an amazing talent. Always has been, always will be. And the guy's very much going to be like a Harley in his 60s and 70s, still doing stuff in the business and making an impact. I was very proud and happy to see him get that title. And I know it meant a lot to him, especially with coming from Harleys and whatnot, and the history with that. As far as the co-promotion and Mingle knows, that just helps the business all around. I think we're getting slowly past the time of there's only one company in the world. And I think they're acknowledging that too, slowly, which is great because it's opening it's the multiverse, right? It's opening the multiverse. And that's what's cool. That's what fans like to see. You watch any of those Marvel movies, they want to see the other characters come in from other shows and stuff. That's what people want to see in wrestling. They want to see those crossovers. They want to see those invasions, and they want to see that stuff take hold. And I think that's going to happen. I think it's in the making, and like the curtain's been pulled back, the wizard's revealed. Let's just get on with the show now.
Now, someone wanted me to ask you about this Adam Asher backstage incident involving a wine bottle. Could you fill us in on what happened with that?
Well, you'll see. Here I am sitting after my defeat to Rodney Mack. I'm bloody. I'm a mess. I'm beat up. I'm obviously upset that I lost my title, and I'm enjoying a little bit of wine. And APOC, Adam Asher, comes by and insults me, insults my wine. So I may have lost my cool. May have been a little bit of the head trauma, may have been some of the wine, but I may or may not have accidentally dropped a bottle on his head on the ground with force.
Very
Not
interesting. Well, to close this off, do you want to remind people of where people can follow you if they want to look you up on social media?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram. I do have a Twitter and a Facebook at Craig Kiesman. That's Kraig. It's with a K. You'll have to look it up on the thing, but follow me on there. You'll see all my wrestling stuff and whatnot. You can check me out on SW Fury. I'm in a few other places as well, but those will be all on this website too. We're talking about SW Fury because they're my home promotion. They're the ones that we're here for, and they're the ones you get to see Punk A in his truest, classiest form for sure.
And to close this off, do you want to give us a little taste of your promo skills as far as what's going to happen in Carthage, Texas, February 27th, and of course, SW Fury will be back in Canton, Texas, March 20th for another TV taping there as well. The full cards haven't been announced yet, but for Canton, I hear it's going to be a pretty big event too. That's one of the home bases for SW Fury. So if you're in that area, definitely look forward to that event because it's probably going to be the biggest SWE event in Canton so far.
Absolutely. Well, I would say, as the connoisseur Niles Plonk in Carthage, Texas, the people of SW Fury, the fans, they're in desperate need of some class. They're in desperate need of some sophistication. And to my own fault, I haven't brought that to you. I've tried and I've failed. So in Carthage, you're going to see a brand new Plonk with a new mission, one that will be certainly worthy of your cheers.